My dear friends, welcome back. Dear friend, one of the original dear friends of this channel, that is Chris Holmes of the Holmes D&D Basic Legacy tradition. Though he's made some great games himself. I've played at least one of them, and I'm looking forward to that thing coming out. So you get that thing out here someday. And he's working on even more. And today, I'm lucky because I'm getting pulled into an ongoing effort of Chris's to expound on the different genres of cinema. And today we're going to be talking about surrealist cinema. So welcome back to the show, Chris. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
Good.
You actually, I think I talked you into this because you wanted to do a show on Terry Gilliam movies. And I said, "Oh, you want to do a show on all surrealist film directors?"
Yeah,
Here's
well,
30.
it works out, and I think we got a good lineup to talk about here today. But before we get into that, since you are doing a series on different film genres, tell us what you've already covered and where people can hear it.
I did one show on zombie movies with Mike Stewart and I were on Shane Plays Geek Talk. And we talked about zombie movies for 2 hours. And then we finished, and then we talked for another hour. And then I went to dinner, and I think they were still talking. But I was done.
That's funny. It was a good episode. I listened to it all. It could have used more Chris Holmes, but that's fine because we're going to get more Chris Holmes here, and there's more coming to you in the future. What is it about RPG geeks and movies? It seems like that's a very popular topic for people like us. Like, you like RPGs, chances are you're going to be really into weird movies too.
Must be our big brains.
I
Yeah.
think that's what it is. It's
We
the
like using our
imagination,
imagination. Yeah.
the inspiration, and those two elements, those more insubstantial aspects of human activity, of what our minds get up to, it's really going to play into every movie we talk about and surrealist cinema in general. So, Chris, before we get started talking about movies, what is surrealist cinema? What makes a movie surreal?
And some of these may not qualify entirely. There's some are slightly surreal, I'd say, and some are very surreal. But it's a way of using your unconscious when you make the film, or using your dreams, or triggering sort of dream-like reactions in your audience. I think some of these directors put stuff in their movies and they weren't really sure why, or if they did know why, they didn't want to tell us, and they didn't really want everything to be explained, and they wanted us to sort of react to them and enjoy them or be frightened by them. But they're not like Tolkien fantasy where everything makes sense, everything has lore, everything follows rules. And they're not like hard science fiction where everything makes sense and follows rules of physics or whatever. So these filmmakers, these things we're not going to be able to figure them out. We're just going to have to kind of appreciate them or not appreciate them. And they're going to make us happy, or they're going to make us scared, or they're going to make us laugh, or all three.
I agree. And I think you already touched on something that's important of how much these things are going to make sense. There is a vast scale in movies, but surrealist cinema specifically, of how comprehensible or intelligible the movie can be. Some of them have very concrete narratives to where it's weird, but you can enjoy it as the movie and maybe not get some of the other things the director put in there because maybe the director didn't even understand what they meant. And we're going to talk about a number of those. And on the other end of the scale, you get effectively visual noise where there's not really a narrative. The only meaning that's in it is what you ascribe to it. And then there's the spectrum in between. And we're going to do a pretty good job covering most of that during the film reviews that we're going to do. I think of surrealism as it's kind of an uncanny valley of moods. It's something that almost makes sense to the rational mind, but it's a little bit off or a lot off from what your brain's expecting. So like most movies, books, and a lot of other cultural products are rational because they're intended to be understood by the broadest audience possible, or at least a very narrow, dedicated niche audience. But surreal is irrational. It doesn't obey those rules and expectations that our rational minds have, and instead appeals to our emotional side, our lunar aspect, if you're into that kind of thing. The part of us that oh, you're not into the lunar aspect. So solar lunar means nothing to you. But it's that part of us that dreams and wishes for impossible things. And so surreal cinema, it shows us things that might not make sense, but if you understand what it's trying to say, you might come away thinking that that's completely true. Even though on the surface it's garble, but it spoke to you. Like music, very strong in the surrealism aspect because like lyrics are often nonsensical, but you add the inflection, the tone of the vocalist, the musical accompaniment, and it hits you in your feelings and it conjures up all kinds of images and experiences that you've never directly had. Or if you have, it brings you back to that place. And like if you're at a concert and the sound is overwhelming your physical body and vibrating your every atom, it could make you a changed person at the end of it. It's a genre of cinema for people who are interested in meaning. So, like normies, people who think that Marvel cinema is the height of art or that are addicted to Days of Our Lives and don't want anything else, that they will not have a good time here. They won't understand it. It's not for them. So if you have pretenses at being a snob, surreal cinema is where you need to be because this is where this is where the elites of snobs around the world for like the past 100 years have been competing for who can read more into the least comprehensible garbage
Comprehensible.
possible. And I'll admit, I lose some of those competitions because I watch something and I don't get it. It's not for me. That's fine. And not everybody's going to like everything we cover. Chris hates some of these movies,
At least
particularly
one.
ones at least that I had suggested to him. And there's some of these that I either hate or they don't do anything for me. But then there's stuff that we love. And our hope is you'll find at least one of these that interests you and it might change your life because some of these have done that to me. And we'll talk about that further on. Chris, you got anything to add to that?
Well, just to nitpick a little, I think
Sure.
surrealism's a style, not a genre. But in a way, you're
Ooh.
right, because the first movie we're going to talk about is a surrealist film. So maybe it's a genre with only one or two movies in it. But as soon as we finish with that one, we're going to go into a children's fairy tale movie, and then we're going to do some science fiction movies and some horror movies and some dark comedies, and but they're all going to have a surrealist style that shows up in them.
I'm glad you mentioned that about the range of topics that these movies touch on. They all have this common thread through them of being more on the irrational end of the scale than the rational. But remember, dreams can be blissful and wonderful, and they can be existential dread, terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that a lot of the surrealist movies wind up on that incredibly dark, nothing's worth anything. We're all going to die, and it's going to be horrible end of the spectrum. But there are a lot of others that you can pick from. Hopefully, will help you narrow down to maybe ones you'd want to aim for during the course of this discussion. But if you can dream it, then there's probably a surrealist film out there that will speak to you about a dream, a feeling that you want to explore more of. So, what we're going to do is the selection of films we've got go back to the beginning of cinema, come up to modern day, because filmmakers have been creating surreal pictures as long as there's been cameras to make them with. I find that a lot of their stories are timeless. So, it doesn't matter if something's from 1929, it's still going to be relevant in some way today, as long as people remain people, which might change pretty soon. We're going to edit ourselves into oblivion. But so long as there's a human emotion to relate to it, it'll be timely. And so we're going to give the name of the film, the director of the film, the runtime, and I grabbed the basic description from IMDb to provide those who are unfamiliar with it with some basic idea of what's going on. But bear in mind, with surreal cinema, it's almost impossible to accurately describe what's really going on because sometimes the filmmakers don't even know what's really going on. But we want to give you some point of reference to work with. All right. So, Chris, what do we got first?
Un chien andalou, which is Andalusian dog in French, made by two Spanish artists, Louis Buñuel and Salvador Dali. The title is probably what I would call a regional joke on the people in southern Spain, because Buñuel and Dali were both hoity-toity guys from Catalonia in northern Spain. So it would be similar to me making a movie called like Florida Dog. This is the Andalusian dog. They're just seeing what they could get away with, and most critics let it pass. And so
Yeah,
Buñuel was
Buñuel.
kind of he
Sorry.
was very critical of a lot of things. He's not a nice filmmaker in a way.
1929. It's about 16 to 20 minutes long, just depends on which version you find. And it is available for viewing for free on YouTube. That's where I found it. Here's the short IMDb description. Luis Buñuel and Salvador Dali present 16 minutes of bizarre, surreal imagery. That's the best they could come up with for a plot. IMDb, that's
Yeah.
the plot summary they gave us.
No
And
warning on it being shocking violence and nudity and smoking.
oh, you mean the bit of eyeball body horror that we get should thrill or creep people out depending on what your flavor is?
There's a couple moments of body horror in it, actually.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
there's a
right.
severed hand, and there's a hand with a hole with ants coming out of it as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you see, like the razor blade and the eyeball, that one got to me. Whereas, like the ants coming out of somebody's body, I was like, ah, that's a thing. But you're right. So if you're into body horror, this is definitely for you. I think that you're absolutely right in how they approached it and how mocking the two creators are being with it because it is snooty and self-indulgent, but both of those men were. And I'm sure not everybody's going to like it, but I'm glad it did what it did. I thought it was interesting. It committed to being weird and it followed through on that. There might be a story you can pull out of it, but I think it's on the visual noise end of the spectrum. So David Lynch fans, like the real hardcore ones, they'll love it. And I found it playful and creative, but also threatening at times. So it's an interesting combination of emotions they're getting across to you. And if you think you're going to have a hard time getting into it, just wait till that soundtrack starts sweeping you up along with it because it's Richard Wagner. It's hard to stop once his beats start catching you and making you kind of dance with what's going on the screen. I thought it was an effective presentation.
Mm-hmm. It's also, if you like the movie The Ring or Ringu, it's probably inspired that video in that film that causes you to be killed. But
Really?
yeah, I think it inspired parts of Eraserhead by David Lynch, and I think anyone who wants to do or show something super weird usually references it in some way because it was just the weirdest movie of its time, and it's still really damn weird.
Yeah, it is. And this Winnell and the next director we're going to talk about, I found those came up a lot in influences of the later directors that we talked about. So folks that are into surrealist cinema, they're used to going all the way back to the first weird thing someone ever shot with a camera. There's a lot of continuity in such an incomprehensible space, but they don't let that inspiration go to waste, which is cool. This thing, and looking it up, it was inspired by dreams that both of the men had, both Dali and Buñuel, and they decided to, quote, do not dwell on what required purely rational, psychological, or cultural explanations. Open the way to the irrational. It was accepted only that which struck us, regardless of the meaning. That's what they were going to put in the movie. And so I believe it was Dali that got quoted about, I don't exactly know what it means, the things we put on film. And Dali was in the film as well, as was Buñuel. So if the guy who made it says, just because I don't know what it means doesn't mean that it has no meaning, this is a good way to get you started in surrealist cinema, is to know that the creators don't even know what it means altogether. Now, this thing was a huge hit in Paris when it got released, and I think Dali was hoping that it would incite a riot in the people, and they would like go around burning the city like a mob. Whereas Buñuel was terrified that they were going to hate it and go on a riot throughout the city. They didn't get a riot,
Yeah.
but they got mad fame for it. And there is a sequel to this that one of the viewer or one of the audience members, I think he was a Viscount or something like that, some old money, tried to convince them to make another movie. He'd finance it. And finally they did. and it's like an hour and some change long. And it was apparently so bad that patron got kicked out of his gentleman's club. Now, we don't have a lot of gentlemen's club in the United States. It is a very aristocratic elite thing, but getting kicked out of your gentlemen's club, that is a big deal. They must have hated it that bad. They
It's
kicked
pretty
this guy.
bad. It,
Have you watched it? I haven't seen it.
I fell asleep. It's really boring. And Dolly's influence is not very evident in it, but it's really slow.
Uh,
So avoid it. Go on.
that
Go
is a
on to the
common
20th century.
that is a common problem with a lot of surrealist cinema.
Yeah.
That I find is that it takes too long to get to the next thing that's interesting. It's not that there's nothing interesting in it. It's that for whatever reason, and I have some speculation as to what the reason is, instead of taking a shot of Steven staring at something excitedly and then cutting to the things he's staring at, it stays there for 5 minutes and doesn't change. And pacing is a critical element of any sort of art you're doing, like in interactive art, a book, a game, music, whatever. Pacing is critical. That is a very weak point for more surreal oriented directors. Um, so I'm sorry to see that. So I can skip watching that one, you think?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Now, since we're already in France, let's move on to the second one. 1946's English translation being Beauty and the Beast, directed by, is it John Cocteau?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Cocteau.
This guy, now he shows up a lot when anybody's talking about surrealist cinema, well deservedly so. So you got about an hour and a half of Beauty and the Beast. If you're familiar with that story, that's what it is. But here's the IMDb description. A beautiful young woman takes her father's place as the prisoner of a mysterious beast who wishes to marry her. I really like this one. This one was really good. I didn't even know it existed until you suggested it. So hopefully you like it too. What did you think of it?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love it. Before World War II, he did a pretty good surrealist film, I think called Blood of the Poet, but it's still what has that boredom problem that we've been hinting at. And then this one he made after World War II. It took him a long time because he didn't have that much money. But I think the star of it, who plays the Beast, and he like did his makeup for 3 hours. That whole thing.
Jean
They
Marais,
just
I think.
yeah, the people who made it really wanted to make something nice for France. It's a great fairy tale. It's not too childish, but it's not, I think, too adult. It takes it very seriously. And then the castle, of course, the haunted castle is really weird. It has some really cool surreal elements in it.
When it comes to fairy tales and that kind of the magic that goes with it, which is sometimes disturbing and frightening and sometimes whimsical and wonderful, this
Mm-hmm.
movie does a great job of nailing that. And surrealism can go very dark, it can be light, because dreams do both. I think this one captures a mood very well of that there's more to the world than what we can really know, because there's a bunch of strange things that happen in this movie. Like the Beast appears to have some sort of magical powers. He can command things in his environment to obey his will. And I think in a surrealist, in a dream-like sense, that seems right to me, that the longer you're in a location, in a place, in a house, spiritually you and that place should share some common element. So in dream logic, why wouldn't it make sense that you are the land and the land is you? Kind of that Dracula vibe of I
Mm-hmm.
can will things to happen to it, but I'm also a reflection of the state of the land. And the beast's castle, it's not tended to, it's overrun with vines, cobwebs, it's creepy, this and that, and so it reflects on him as well, but he also reflects on it. So it's one of those as above so below things, but it's man's relation to its environment. It shows a sense of like magical surrealism, I think. So fairy tale, we're hitting that. But there's also a lot of tenderness in this thing. It's a really beautiful flick. Now, do you know if the castle they shot in was a real castle? Because this looked too beautiful to just be a set.
I think it was a chateau. Yeah.
Okay.
Parts of it, the exteriors. The
Because I could,
interiors, some of them are really dark, so that might have been a set. They're almost just
okay.
things appearing out of blackness. Yeah.
Because this movie feels so lived in. Like I felt I was in the location with them watching this happen. So getting immersed into the film, incredibly easy the way they set it up. And one of the first things you mentioned to me was the costuming. It is amazing. I think all the special effects hold up today and actually are better than some of the CGI slop we get. The Beast is amazing. Jean Marais, who plays the Beast, he's fantastic, but he
Yeah.
starts off all frightening and imperious. And the second Belle shows up, he just turns into this whiny emo boy who's just so down on himself. He can't wait to throw himself off a bridge or something because he's worthless and he's begging for her. That was kind of funny because, like, when Dad's there begging for his life, the Beast is just this intimidating creature, and then
Yeah.
the second a pretty girl shows up, he just loses it.
That's fairy tale logic. Has a happy ending too.
Yeah, yeah. If you've enjoyed any version of Beauty and the Beast, definitely check this out. It might become your favorite version. I had originally watched it on YouTube, but I don't think it's available there anymore for free. I think you have to rent it on Amazon Prime. I guess they saw that I've watched it and they thought, oh, I can charge money for this. And so
I
they put
think
it
I
behind a
got it for
paywall.
free. I'm not sure.
Okay. But totally worth your time. This is a big thank you to Chris for recommending this one that I didn't know about. Now, you won't feel good about the next movie, though. 1977's House or House by Nobuhiko Obayashi. It's
Oh,
about
that's
an
good.
hour and a half long. And this description I wrote myself. OMG, this is nightmare fuel. If you ever needed proof something is deeply not well in the Japanese psyche, one, we can blame America for part of it, and two, you would be right. They are not well. Uh, that's my summary of it. Before I keep going on, before I kill
Well,
again,
I'm
Chris.
laughing because I've seen Japanese movies that are so much more disturbing than this.
Oh my God.
You're just scratching the surface.
What are you into, Chris?
Just open to the, yeah.
Okay, but plot summary. We get a group of teenage girls, adorable as can be, headed for a
Mhm.
vacation at one of their auntie's house in the country, and they're fairly innocent, like teens should be. They're good kids. But they go into auntie's house, and she's basically the devil. The house is cursed, and each girl dies in one imaginative and horrible way after another. Did I get that about right, or
Yeah,
do you have some? Did I
that's
miss
about
something?
right. Yeah.
Oh,
The girls and the auntie and dad and all the characters are sort of two-dimensional, cartoony. So there's a sort of a sense that you don't really need to worry about what happens in the movie because these aren't real people. I kind of wanted Kung Fu, the girl who has some martial arts skill. I wanted her to live, but when she died, I was like, oh, okay, they're all going to die.
yeah.
Spoiler alert: the witch wins in the end,
Yeah.
and
I
her
went
creepy
in
cat.
not knowing that. So I was holding out hope that at least one of them would get away. And by the end, I was like, no, none of them are getting out of this. And it's tough. But it's so good. It is so good. If you like horror movies at all, forget the surrealist angle, whatever. But if you like horror movies in the slightest and have not seen this thing, you need to. There are still people churning out lengthy videos analyzing this movie from all kinds of angles because it's that good. I mean, it's from 1977 and it's still got a big following to this day. Now, I first saw it, a screening of it at the unfortunately Dead and Gone Cult Fiction Underground, which was a cult movie theater in Nashville, Tennessee, back
Oh,
in the day. And just looking at the poster for it, I knew I was getting into something screwed up, but I had no idea how much until I got into it. It's incredibly well shot. It just uses very imaginative special effects that I think still hold up well. Before I get into the what I perceive to be the surreal angle, the dreamlike angle for it, do you have anything to add, Chris?
well, it was very low budget. The special effects, like Beauty and the Beast, in a way, were sort of done by the director.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Because
Maybe he had one other guy helping him.
it didn't come across as cheap to me. It looked
No,
great.
he's a great artist.
Oh, yeah. It's a beautiful movie. Just the visual. Well, I mean, the
Yeah.
visuals can be disturbing, but the presentation of it, the mise en scène of what is being presented to you, it's very impressive. And so we'll go with the dream angle first because, or that imagination angle first, because the director, he framed the horrible things happening as best as he could through how a child would perceive it. So you mentioned the two-dimensional characters. Well, children aren't known for a depth of understanding of the human condition. And so we see some of that. So Obayashi, he was traumatized by the atomic bombing of Japan, which he should be. I mean, if you get bombed by anything, I'm thinking it's fair game for you to be traumatized. And then if it's an atomic bomb, fair to go. So he was already predisposed to troubling subject matter, but he talked to his daughter about the things she was afraid of, like if she looked in a mirror, that the mirror would eat her, which that doesn't make sense to a rational adult, but kids, they think all kinds of crazy things. And in kid logic, like in dream logic, things don't have to make sense, but they have their own sense to them. And so this pulls a lot from that perspective. So it's not your purely rational movie. Because like in The Ring that you mentioned earlier, yes, there's some supernatural stuff going on, but everything follows logically.
Yeah,
It
it
all
follows the
makes sense.
rules. Yeah.
This, that's a lot more loosey goosey. It's been going back to how the child sees the world, that and playing into everything we get. The creative ways the girls are killed. It seems like not only did the mirror's going to eat me played into that, but also that the girls seem to kind of accept they're doomed and cut down like flowers on the field, none of
Yeah.
which seems right.
No.
And your auntie devouring them is the exact opposite of what should happen. But so much is off in this movie regarding how the world should work and how it is the girl's acceptance of it that I found like kind of challenging because, like I said, I wasn't prepared for what was going to happen. So,
Mhm.
dear viewer, you're going to have an easier time with this movie than I did. And apparently, Chris, because he's into all kinds of stuff. Uh, but it's very interesting. There's a lot of layers to it. It's,
What you mentioned about the reactions of the girls not making, any sense is sort of a dream quality.
yes.
Something really weird will happen in a good surrealist movie and everyone will kind of just pass it off. Like,
Yeah.
oh, she's not at dinner. I wonder what happened to her.
Oh,
Oh, her head is
well,
missing. It's turned into a watermelon. Oh dear. Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah,
I
you're
guess
right.
more for us. She tastes delicious.
Yeah, no, that's in the field. So this isn't your typical haunted house movie. It is so much more than that. And if you're into phantasmagoric horror films, watch this. House will not disappoint you. Promise that. And so, sir, what do we have next?
No, we're still in 1977 now.
Mm,
Eraserhead, the midnight movie I saw when it came out by
really?
David Lynch.
So you were part of that initial craze when it first hit and just was like the biggest thing of a film insider talk of the town situation.
It disturbed me. Yeah.
Yeah,
I did,
it's weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I saw it, but I kind of was like, I never want to watch this again.
I understand that. David Lynch, dearly departed David Lynch. Sorry to see him go because he's one of those directors that had such a unique vision that if you're watching a movie, you would know if it was David Lynch or not. And sometimes that was a good thing, sometimes that was a bad thing. He had such artistic integrity that I couldn't help but respect him, and apparently was an incredibly nice guy, really funny. So since this was his big breakout film, I had high hopes for it. Unfortunately, we get about an hour and a half of dreadfully lingering camera shots of people going, and my normal rule for a movie that I haven't seen before is I'll give it 20 minutes. And if I don't give a shit at the end of 20 minutes, I'm done. I'm checking out. This one, I gave it an hour because of who directed it. And I found I could not give a shit. This was on the almost all the way at the end of the visual noise into the spectrum, which David Lynch was a big fan of the visual noise presentation. There's something in it that meant a lot to him. But then there's people, maybe you included, that think Eraserhead is the best movie ever made. And I ain't going to throw any shade on them. I mean, do you not want to see it again because of you're more on my end of the perspective, or were you disturbed by it? Why don't you want to see it again?
Well, I did watch it again one more time.
Okay.
I think maybe one of the things you were reacting to was the actual physical noise in the movie because the soundtrack is not music, it's noises. And you
Sure.
may not have been aware, but those noises were really set me on edge. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the humor when the people reacted so weirdly, I just found it hilarious. And also, I was horrified by the baby. So those are two things that I'm drawn to: humor and horror.
They,
But yeah, you're right. It's too slow. I would edit it, I guess, if I was a producer.
but you hit on a timeless lesson. Humor and horror should always go together. Now, the mix can be radically different movie to movie, but if your movie is only horror, people get bored because there's no sense of contrast. There's no light and dark. It's monotone, it's one flavor. But if you put in a couple bits of humor, it refreshes the palate, and then the horrible things can still be horrible. Because if it's just everything's awful all the way through, that's not going to provoke, unless that's specifically that oppressive pointlessness that you're trying to get out of your audience, that's not going to be the most enjoyable thing in the world. Oh, the description of it, my bad. Henry Spencer tries to survive his industrial environment, his angry girlfriend, and the unbearable screams of his newborn mutant child. And yeah, that thing screams a lot. Yeah, this one is full of interesting visuals. It's got a Americana body horror feel to me, and it's certainly what I feel that Lynch was trying to get across in this movie. But minutes, if you like movies where minutes drag on forever and nothing really happens while trying to appear to be profound, this is for you. Um, but again, we come back to the problem of pacing. No better example of this can be made than some of Lynch's other work. If you take the TV series Twin Peaks, which
Mhm.
is a gold standard surrealist piece of work. If you haven't seen Twin Peaks, it is worth your time. And if you're not real sure how to get into to like find this kind of material accessible, if you've ever enjoyed a soap opera or Beverly Hills 90210 or any of that kind of stuff, Twin Peaks is a good on-ramp for you to the cinema of the weird. But you take
Mhm.
the original two seasons, he had other people that were constraining what he could make that were making it with him to where it had to work on TV. And I think it's brilliant. It's wonderful. But then you get the third season that he got to make a few decades later, where he had complete creative control, and it drags.
Actually,
Um,
I would say just the first season.
you think
Yeah, I think once we find out who killed Laura Palmer, I think the second season doesn't really know where to go.
you're right, but I still found it very entertaining.
Okay.
For those who may not have checked out any of the Twin Peaks, the first and second season, I'd recommend that to anybody. The third season, only for folks who are really patient. Um, well, I got like 5 episodes into it, and I like Lynch, and it's work. But only watch Fire Walk with Me, which is excellent if you're ready for some pretty heinous shit to happen on camera. And it is unflinching. But if you can handle incredibly dark subject matter, very uncomfortable stuff, Fire Walk with Me is really good. What'd you think
Yeah, I
about all
didn't.
that?
I was kind of traumatized by Firewalk with Me.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And
Also, it begins really kind of weird and boring and disjointed. Once it catches up and gets going, then it's horrific. It's just too much reality.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's one of the things that Lynch does in a number of his works is kind of bring out the horrific elements that can be found in everyday life. That might not be everybody's cup of tea because they want to escape the horrors of the day-to-day world, but it can be rewarding. And a lot of his stuff is very good. And he does make stuff that's on the stronger narrative end of the perspective than on the visual noise end of the perspective. He's got a mix of both. For the record, I still say that his Dune was good. I enjoyed his version of Dune. What'd you think of that?
I enjoyed it too.
Good.
I don't really think of it as his because I don't think he had that much control over it. But
Yeah.
it's an 80s movie with some good performances and some good sort of production design, costume design, and set design. And it's it's a fun story. But yeah, the parts of it suck and they were really bad.
And the special effects do not hold up. The sets hold
Yeah.
up very well, but and it's not a surrealist movie, but I was just picking that hill to go stand on and challenge anybody.
There's a scene in it when the actor from Eraserhead, John Nance, he's a toady to the Baron Harkonnen, and he's like duct taping a rat or something onto a cat in the background. And my wife said, "There, that's David Lynch."
That is David Lynch. Yeah.
He
Um,
threw that in just to because he's David Lynch.
well, that speaks to the next director we're going to talk about, Terry Gilliam, because in was it 13 Monkeys, he had little bits like that Like
Yeah,
he would do
yeah.
shot after shot trying to get this little hamster on a wheel running at just the right time to go with everything else that was actually important to the story. But yeah, Terry Gilliam and David Lynch, I think of modern filmmakers, they're probably the most important. They were the most well known of the surrealist school. Is there any other name you would add to that, or would you take issue with that assessment?
No, not at all. But what's interesting is they both start out as artists. Gilliam was a cartoonist and animator, and Lynch was a painter. They sometimes spend an awful lot of time on the visual parts of their movies. So,
I think it pays off though,
oh
because
yeah, I
so
mean,
many of
obviously we like it.
yeah, we're into it. Well, I mean, we like art too. We like fine art. So when you have people with those sensibilities designing what's going to be put into your eyeballs, you got a better chance of it being something of quality. Next, we're jumping up to 1985. Terry Gilliam, my favorite director. He had been successful before with Monty Python and other things, but this was his big breakout auteur, artist filmmaker film, Brazil. It's about 2 hours, 12 minutes, but there's three different cuts of it. So that's just a rough yardstick. And it's quite a story, which we don't have time to get into here, of him fighting with the studio over who was going to put out the final cut, who was going to have the final approval of the story. And I think he won, which was a rarity and still is a rarity when the studios decide that a director is just going to take it. Somehow Gilliam pulled it off, whereas like on Dune, Lynch did not. So Brazil, brief description. A bureaucrat in a dystopic society becomes an enemy of the state as he pursues the woman of his dreams. Chris, what do you think about Brazil?
I originally thought that Terry Gilliam read or saw the movie 1984, and he read Franz Kafka's The Trial, and he said, let me try and make this into a comedy. But he claims he never saw 1984 or read it. And the movie version came out 1 year before Brazil. So he was probably done with Brazil and just working on the special effects or something. So I was wrong about that. He was reacting to his hatred of paperwork, and I think also something's happening in Thatcher era England where he lived, and his penchant for dark comedy, and he just created a masterpiece. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, and this one I only saw within about the past 10 years, so I'm relatively late to it, whereas I'd been enjoying Gilliam since I was a kid. Like his Baron Munchausen is either my number one or number two favorite film of all time, and it competes with his other Baron Munchausen-esque story, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, for that top spot. So I'm all about me some Gilliam. But the first time I watched Brazil, I made it halfway through and I stopped because it wasn't connecting with me. I wasn't getting it. I wasn't enjoying it. But some time passed, and I thought, this is a really important movie from my favorite director. Maybe I should give it another try. And I was blown away that second time. My
Good.
expectations were better tuned to what the story it was trying to tell me. And so, like, my life experiences synced up better. Like, I knew what he was trying to do, and my subconscious was like, yes, we can relate to this. And I think it deserves all the praise that it gets. Unlike a lot of Lynch's stuff, Gilliam is usually very towards the end of a strong narrative. Now, there's still going to be weird stuff in it, but if you're looking to get into more cerebral cinema, Gilliam's probably your best bet because he's going to tell a solid movie and there's as much or as little weird stuff going on in there as you care to explore. But at least you're going to have a solid movie.
It's usually about a male protagonist who sort of becomes great or falls from greatness or somewhere in between. But so it's a very sort of comfortable thing for lowbrow people, I would think, to get into.
Yeah,
But what's interesting is he's this weak character with a great fantasy life who wants to do the right thing because he has a crush on this girl, but he's not really up to it and he fails a lot. And society is working against him, and it gets really tense, but it's also hilarious. And he meets someone in the Robert De Niro character who is a hero, actually. He's the hero plumber, I guess, air conditioning man, who's like the Batman of air conditioning in this dystopia. But then in the end, you're not even sure if Robert De Niro was real or not. He probably
yeah.
was, but he doesn't. Yeah, I don't want to spoil the ending.
You're absolutely right, because the mood you're going to get out of this one, it straddles a middle ground of pining for our fantasies while being mired in a depressing real world run by imbeciles who ruin everything, like the Robert De
Yeah.
Niro character. He goes around fixing things the government refuses to fix. And when the government finds out that he fixed it, vigilante style, they come in and tear it out and ruin it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
So since this movie's come out, whether it was anti-Thatcher or could be applied to a modern context, it has never not been timely.
Yeah.
And I feel it more today than even back then, because the government's far more omnipresent now than it was back then. And it really captures what it's like to be a dreaming human being in a technocratic dystopia that you're stuck in. Jonathan Pryce, plays the protagonist, oh, he's great. And
Everyone's great in it.
top shelf. And it's got a hell of a cast too. And so it's kind of a fight against the smothering of the human spirit with the flawed protagonist. Spoiler, he doesn't win because that's not the reality that this is going with. And no, I absolutely recommend it. And if you find it, don't enjoy it right off the bat or your first time around, give it some time, let it breathe. Try out Time Bandits. That
Yeah.
one, I think anybody could go for. There is a movie with a female protagonist of his, Tideland. Avoid that at all costs, not because it's a bad movie, but because it is a slit your wrist kind of movie with horrible, traumatic things in it, incredibly realistic. It doesn't go too much for the magical fantasy stuff. But when the movie opens up with Terry Gilliam giving you a warning about what
Yeah.
you're going to experience, listen to him.
Yeah.
Listen to him.
So
Um,
yeah, Time Bandits is great.
Time
And a movie you
Bandits,
could take your kids to.
absolutely. I grew up on it. Baron
Yeah.
Munchausen, just
Yeah.
on and on and on. The guy is just so good. I hope he never dies so he can keep making movies because he's just phenomenal.
Can I talk about Kafka a little bit?
Oh, of course.
Because he's really the only writer who sort of succeeds, I think, at surrealism that I know of. So the Metamorphosis, the story about the guy who wakes up as a big cockroach or beetle, that's a nightmare short story. Brazil and other movies like it, dystopias, are sort of based on Kafka's The Trial or The City, I think is another one. Anyway, Kafka himself, I think he was an actuary or an insurance person, and he felt oppressed and he was neurotic and he was writing sort of from his soul. So his stuff is darkly humorous, but occasionally very bleak. I think Brazil's the best version of a Kafka-esque story, but there's a couple others. Orson Welles did a version of The Trial with Anthony Perkins as the Kafka character, and it's good, but it's hard to watch because of the sound and the maybe the quality of the one I was watching. Anyway,
Mm,
Barton Fink is kind of a Hollywood version of a Kafka. Hollywood is the bureaucracy there, and
that's an
that's really
excellent
good.
movie.
And there's a movie called Double, very Kafkaesque too, and it's good and funny, and it's all the Kafka things we love, dark and sad, frustrating.
And I'm glad that you took the time to talk about that because you reminded me of the trilogy, The Three Ages of Man, that Gilliam is supposed to have intentionally made Time Bandits, Brazil, and The Adventures of Baron Munchausen to simulate.
Really?
Time Bandits, it's the childhood wonder. It is great for kids or those young at heart or those who want to re-experience any of that. It's just a good adventure movie by itself. And then Brazil, that is the grinding middle age of adulthood of feeling suffocated by the world around you. And then the Adventures of Baron Munchausen, that is living in the dreams and through the happy memories of the life you've lived up to old age. And as a kid, this I was exposed to that, and so I always had that broad, dynamic imagination that movie imparts. So that's another part of the human condition and the dreams and the internal health of people at each of those three stages. Now, it might be more geared towards men, but we deserve stuff too. So
Yeah.
nothing stopping women from making their own version.
No,
Uh,
I wasn't trying to insult him. I love him too.
oh no,
He's
no,
a
no.
great director,
I
and
didn't take
he
it
has
that
a
way.
good, the good, the little girl in Baron Munchausen is delightful.
Oh yeah.
He can do good, but I mean, he's interested in these sort of masculine mythic tales, and he's really good at them. So yeah,
And like you were talking about with the artist angle, just the sets that man comes up with. Oh, just dripping with beauty and ornamentation, and it's just so good. Now, Brazil does not have that. It is gray and suffocating because that's the mood of the movie. But
yeah.
Also, dark and suffocating is 1998's Dark City. Made it on the list by Alex Proyas, who's probably better known for making the Good Crow movie, the first one with Brandon Lee, where he unfortunately got capped. But I found that Alex Proyas also made a bunch of music videos. So he's already approaching making a feature film from a different perspective. And I like that. And he also happened to make music videos for some of my favorite bands like NXS and Sting. And just basically every 90s hit band he made a music video for. And it's really cool. And it's about an hour and a half, Dark City is. And the IMDb brief description we get is a bureaucrat in a dystopic society becomes an enemy of the state as he
No, that's
pursues the woman.
Brazil.
Oh, I copy pasted wrong. Oh, okay.
Like, wait, he's not a bureaucrat. He's an amnesiac.
You're right. Then you give the description since I bungled that one.
Appears to be we start in the 1940s, but it's not really clear. And we have an amnesiac guy, and there's a syringe, and he wakes up, I think, in a bathtub, and he thinks maybe he killed someone, and he's working for the police force. He's estranged from his beautiful wife, and it's no, the sun never rises, and it's dark all the time. And for some reason, he has become immune to what these dark aliens are up to. And so he sees what happens every once in a while. The aliens reset the city and change people's histories and reality by injecting them with the help of a mad scientist played by Kiefer Sutherland. It's a trippy, dark sci-fi movie. And it's one of the few movies where I think the computer graphics kind of work for me because the scenes of the city changing and morphing are sort of beautiful. It's kind of a what's real, what's not real. It was one of the first sort of cyberish sci-fi films that influenced a lot more. So yeah, I think that's my is that
You did a
coherent
great
enough?
job. You did. And this thing is noir. It's Lovecraftian. You've already touched on the element that I think makes it qualify for a surrealist list. There's horror in it. There's a touch of romance and the dynamite cast. So Rufus Sewell is your lead. I haven't seen him do a bad job in anything. Kiefer Sutherland, he goes all in on the quirks. Jennifer
Yeah,
Connelly, I
yeah.
haven't seen her do a bad job in anything. William Hurt,
No.
Richard O'Brien, creator of Rocky Horror Picture Show, as the main villain that follows you around, and he is fantastic in it. So
Yeah.
there's nothing about this cast to not like.
And
Um,
what's neat about Richard O'Brien's villain is that he's becoming more human, even though he's supposed to be just exploiting the humans. He's starting to get feelings and care about things a little bit.
and he doesn't know what
Uh,
to do with it.
yeah, and that's his weakness. Yeah.
Yeah, so like we struggle with all these internal emotions and desires of this and that, and he's an alien consciousness altogether. And to help find something he needs to find, he jacks a human's manufactured memories to help do it, and it's blowing his mind. He has no frame of reference. He doesn't know what to do with it, and so even the bad guy gets some humanization in it, and it's fattening. And
Mhm.
I'd say the surrealist angle here is about memory and what's real and what was only imagined about ourselves. Because the movie says, in part, we're made by our memories. But what if the past wasn't how we actually remembered it? Are your memories accurate? Are they even really yours? Or are you just assuming that some story you read or a news story that you heard about, did you assume that was part of you? Because this kind of thing happens. And so you get
Yeah.
into the trap of the trouble of memory, of identity and knowing who you are, where you came from. And ooh, it's just rife with dramatic potential. And the movie goes hard with that. And are we living based on lies that others spun to trap us in? And now, if any of this is sounding familiar, it's because The Matrix did it the next year and was wildly more successful. And I'm saying it's because of the fight scenes were really good. The fight
Yeah.
scenes in this one are kind of lame. Um,
I
but The
think you're
Matrix
right. It was all about the fight scenes.
just ripped off. Well, and the wet black leather. The Matrix ripped off so much this movie did, and I think in many ways better. They even bought some of the sets off Dark City to use
Oh,
in the
really?
Matrix. But I really like how, if you're familiar with the Plato's allegory of the cave, that this movie models that very well.
Mm.
Because you got, in Matrix, the Neo character, here, the Rufus Sewell character who's who awakens and he can't fall for the lies anymore, but he doesn't quite know what to do with the reality around him yet. He's trying to figure it out. Then there's those people on the cusp of understanding, like William Hurt's investigator. He knows things aren't adding up. He's trying to understand it, but he just can't get outside of the box to see it. And then there's the incurious, the sheep who don't question anything, just accept everything they're given, don't care, and they don't even try to understand why things are the way they are, which is accurate to the real world as well. But this one also gives us that fourth non-human consciousness that is alien to humanity, whether you want to think of it as God, the devil, whatever. And it's the one making all this happen, weaving lies and truth together to spellbind mankind. So it's a very Gnostic idea, like the demiurge or the aeons oppressing mankind with false consciousness. Even Scientology and their thetans, Satan being the father of lies, Ahriman of Zoroastrianism being the father of pollution and corruption. These are some of the faces of the devil, and this movie deals with that. And so this is still timely because that, at least part of that, is universal in human cultures. And it's a good movie. I'd recommend it.
I agree.
Another movie that might fall into surrealist, but I have a hard time categorizing it. The director is also a fan of Alphaville, which is the first movie I'm aware of, is a French film that tried to simulate a oppressive, omnipresent government or society controlling people. And it's an interesting movie. I wouldn't recommend watching it unless you're really hard up.
No, it's boring.
It is. It's got novel concepts, some good acting, but unfortunately, the narrator has this French accent that sounds like turds plopping in a toilet. It is disgusting. Not all French sounds like that, but this guy did. And so, but while I was watching Dark City again, I thought, this reminds me of Alphaville. And then I saw where that inspired Alex Proyas, at least in part, maybe not for this movie, but in general. Anything else on Dark City?
No, I think we nailed it. Yeah, 2 thumbs up.
Now we're going to do a double shot of 1999 because apparently 1999 and 1998 were like the biggest gangbusters of awesome movies in history.
Right.
So first one we're going to talk about is by the person who I would want to direct my biopic if anybody ever makes a movie about me, Julie Taymor. She adapted William Shakespeare's play Titus Andronicus to the movie Titus, starring Anthony Hopkins, Jessica Lange, Alan Cummings, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. I mean, it's got a great cast on it. It's sci-fi flavored surrealist Shakespeare. It's about 2 hours, 42 minutes long, so it's a long one. But remember, it's based on a play, and it's directed by someone who is very influenced by theater and trying to present her movies like theater. The brief description is that Titus returns victorious from war, only to plant the seeds of future turmoil for himself and his family. That comes nowhere near summarizing the crazy shit that
is a
happens
terrible
in here, remember,
summary.
this is Shakespeare. And so I pulled one line from a longer IMDb summary. The ensuing maelstrom serves up tongues, hands, rape, adultery, racism, and goth meat pie. Okay, so between those two things, there's an idea.
That's more accurate. Yeah.
Happening. Now, you've got thoughts on Titus. I want to hear them.
So this is one of Shakespeare's 3 or 4 worst plays that she chose to adapt. She's a great director, and you have a great cast. And for some reason, she thought, okay, I'm gonna pick one of these terrible plays where everyone's horrible and just does horrible things to each other, and that's what I'm gonna make my movie of. So,
it is. Yeah.
It's all Shakespeare's fault. He ruined it.
Blaming Bill? Not Julie?
Yeah. This play sucks. It should never be performed. It should never be adapted. It should just be thrown away.
Now, what do you not like about it? I mean, if you can sum it up, because like with Lynch, I would say pacing. Is there like a signature crime that this commits to you?
Lack of a likable protagonist, maybe.
True.
Okay.
True.
It's a big problem in a 2-hour movie.
Almost 3 hour. You're right. No, that is a valid criticism because a lot
and
of
it's that kind of tit for tat organized crime sort of thing, which I don't really like, where it's like, you did something horrible to my children, I'm going to do something horrible to your children. It's not like I'm going to end the madness. I'm just going to add to the madness in my own way. And Oh,
And
sorry.
that is a problem in a lot of movies. You're right. We don't have anybody to root for. And it's one of my main criticisms of like gangster movies. It's like shitty people doing shitty things to each other. Well, why wouldn't they? What? How is this a surprise? I found the Anthony Hopkins character more likable. Everyone's flawed though. So, but you do have legitimate criticism. I get you. I thought it was intense and enjoyable. The surrealism here is the vicissitudes of what people do to the world around them, the things that should not exist at the same time together, and
Yeah.
kind of a loss of grip on reality as these terrors escalate with each other. So the madness is being put on screen. And remember, dreams can have very dark emotions. This is all the bestial, fleshy, bloody, visceral, horrible excesses that Shakespeare could inflict on people. And they're here in a deranged time period of clashing styles and sensibilities. It's a lot to handle. It definitely won't be for everybody.
Yeah. I think it's mostly fascist Italy is
Mhm.
sort of where most of the action seems to take place, and the cars and the loudspeakers and the big lapels and things. But there's also a callback to pagan Blue Woad or whatever it is too, though. So you're right. There's interesting anachronisms she uses. She's a good director. Too
Also
bad.
1999 from another good director who also cut his teeth in music videos. We get Being John Malkovich, directed by Spike Jonze. And this is possibly the weirdest concept of a film ever imagined. So at an hour 53 minutes, the description is a puppeteer discovers a portal that leads literally into the head of movie star John Malkovich. And then I would add, and hijinks ensue. Because
Yes, hijinks do ensue.
you get a great cast. You get John Cusack, who, whatever he might think of me personally, I think he's a great actor. I love him. Cameron Diaz, Catherine Keener, John Malkovich, of course, who he really does play effectively the poor kind of bystander that all this is happening to, and he doesn't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But they find way, these sad sack people, these puppeteers, Malkovich and Diaz, they start going into this portal and then getting to live life as John Malkovich, to get to skin ride him, to see what it's like to be someone so much more important than them, to get to fuck people that they can't fuck. And it is a very uncomfortable movie because it seems to me like it's all about being comfortable or uncomfortable in your own skin. And these people are not happy with themselves. You will not have a good time with this movie. You might be entertained, but you won't feel good at the end of it.
Yeah, the exception is Catherine Keener's character is very comfortable in her skin, and she has no interest in going into John Malkovich's head. She only
True.
wants to make $200 from all these other miserable people. And they only get 15 minutes, and then they're dumped on the New Jersey Turnpike.
Oh yeah. So if you go into Malkovich's head, you get to do
Yeah,
your ride, and then you get dropped off at the same spot at the New Jersey Turnpike for some reason. Why does that make any sense? In
it
dream
does.
logic, it does.
Well, in a way, it's Charlie Kaufman who wrote the screenplay. I think he's
Oh,
trying
it's
to show you that people are so miserable with their lives that they would trade it. And John Malkovich's life is not that interesting, really, generally.
no,
They would
no.
trade all their money for this 15-minute ride, as you say, and then they have to walk home.
Yeah, it's a lot to handle, but Kaufman, he has done some great stuff. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Adaptation, both are great. And again, Spike Jonze, he also directed, amongst his million music star videos, he did Where the Wild Things Are, which I thought would be a pretty hard thing to translate to the screen, but I think he nailed it. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the subject matter, but it seemed to me that he got the material. Oh, he also directed Adaptation for feature films. That definitely worth checking out. Yeah, Adaptation. And then you get Nick Cage, which is always a plus. Sometimes that's the only plus a movie has. It's
Yes.
Nick Cage.
I thought of something else. This is a Kafkaesque movie too, in a sense
Mm,
that the place where John Cusack has to work is grotesque, ridiculous bureaucracy, where the
yeah.
ceiling is what, only 7 feet tall, or no,
Well,
it's
they
like
have to
six.
like hunch all the time
Yes.
where they're at. And so
Oh
you're
no,
getting
it's
a
not.
little of that Brazil flavor too, of being like
Yeah,
literally hemmed in by your miserable life.
yeah.
And would you abuse this poor bystander just to escape it for 15 minutes? And what does that say about you that you would do it and about your life? Yeah, this is a good one, definitely.
Oh, it must be about 5.5 feet tall because you're right. Everyone is hunched over
Yeah.
throughout
Now,
most of the movie.
now we're going to jump forward to 2001, 2 whole years ahead of time. And it is a crazy, silly musical space western by the name of The American Astronaut. Now, when I saw this on the idea list Chris sent me, I had never heard of it. And I was like, oh, that sounds might be interesting. I looked it up, found it on YouTube. You can watch a quality version of it on YouTube for free. And wow. Um, I'll give it to I'll just do my spiel and then I'll get Chris to start us. So it stars the writer and director Corey Maccabee. It's 1.5 hours long. There's the short IMDb description. Samuel Curtis, an interplanetary trader, sets forth through a rustic and remote solar system, unaware that his old friend Professor Hess is trying to kill him. I think that sells it short, dude.
Yeah. It's really weird.
A lot happens in this thing. What do you think?
Oh, I love it. I've seen it twice. Do you agree it's a gay Western musical?
Gay? What, kind of?
Kind of, yeah, because there's
Yeah.
no women in it.
No, there are at the end.
Yeah, but they're
And
ignored.
that's true, aren't they? Yeah.
It also avoids any kind of special effects, even really crude ones. He's basically driving his space van from planet to planet during the movie, and they chose to show you works of art to indicate that he's in space instead of ever showing like a model in space. And they did as much as they could to make his space van not very impressive. It's like the movie subverts our expectations every chance it gets.
Yeah.
And then it's beautifully filmed too.
Oh, yeah.
But everyone in it looks kind of disheveled and not very attractive. And
Yeah,
then
this
they
is
sing and
not
dance and
Star
they're not that
Wars
good at
space
it.
travel. This is not
It's
that.
hilarious though.
No glamour. So this thing, its visuals were impressive. Like you said, the cinematography was good and it was very moody, but man, is it one note for long stretches of time. Um,
Okay.
a lot happens in this thing, but it takes too long for it to happen to stay interesting. I kept skipping forward after I realized how long this thing was going to drag out every single scene. I'd skip forward a few minutes. All right, watch this till I got bored, do that. And I think a good editor could have gotten this down to an hour or 45 minutes and it would be outstanding because there are a lot of interesting plots, characters, subplots, combats, complications, musical numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, but impressive and possibly improvised, like dance scenes, which I
Yeah.
was not expecting, and more. And the editor has done some tightly paced features elsewhere, just for whatever reason, not here. And I suspect that you're falling into the trap that a lot of low budget directors make of I've got to make it to that sweet spot of 1.5 hours of feature film or no one will take me seriously. So I'm just going to
No.
leave the camera on and pad. But padding is the greatest sin you can do in cinema, in my opinion. So there's a lot of value here. You just have to be patient to get to it. It's closer towards that visual noise into the spectrum, but it does have a lot more plot than some of those movies. Something you said reminded me of the classic South Park line of gay cowboys eating pudding. That really sums up the art house scene or surrealist cinema, the ones who are really into it. It makes as much sense as gay cowboys eating pudding. And so it's free
He's
on YouTube.
delivering a
But
fetus too. Did
yeah, that's
did you get that? That's
there's
part of the
so
plot.
much happening. Uh,
I
but
just wanted people to understand how weird it is. It's
uh,
weird.
I don't
I
know
think
if
we've managed that.
I don't know if we could emphasize how weird this thing is to anyone,
Yeah,
but it's free on YouTube. Check it out. It won't hurt. It won't cost you anything to give it a try. Maybe you'll love it.
I
Even
love it.
I like it. It's just wish it could have been presented better. So the American Astronaut, there's something to like in it. It's just whether you can match the pacing or not. That's the key.
Yeah.
Now, the next movie we're going to talk about is from a director you probably have heard of because he made Donnie Darko, which made a splash at the time, and it's still a very imaginative movie. But since that one's been talked about so much, we're not going to talk about Donnie Darko. We're going to talk about his follow-up movie to that. So Richard Kelly in 2006 released Southland Tales. It's 2.5 hours long. And the description is during a 3-day heat wave just before a huge 4th of July celebration, an action star stricken with amnesia meets up with a porn star who's developing her own reality TV project and a policeman who holds the key to a vast conspiracy. So if you ever play the film star game, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, this movie should be in your tool chest because I counted 17 name actors when I watched it, including the first and maybe only time I saw The Rock actually try to act like someone other than The Rock. And I thought he was pretty good at it. But
No one could have done that role.
But you know what? Chris watched it at my recommendation because I was like, you should check this one out because he wanted to talk about Donnie Darko, but I was like, oh, what about this? And apparently he has opinions. What, are we still friends, Chris? Is that how
Yes,
bad
there's
it
no.
went?
Well, I think you may owe me $2 because the movie cost me $3 to watch. So maybe you just owe me $1.50. I
Okay, I'll buy
definitely
you a drink
hated.
at North Texas.
Yeah, I thought, well, I'll get a deal then. I hated a third of this movie. And a third of this movie amused me, and a third of this movie, I guess, bored me or confused me. I don't know.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
And I'm like the intended audience for this movie. I'm like a liberal from Southern California where this movie takes place. I've been to all the locations. I get all the references, and I hate this movie. It's a terrible movie. I think this movie offends both ends of the political spectrum, and it's just awful, awful mess.
Well,
You want to
for
hear what I like about it?
obviously, I want to hear that.
Okay. I like the bad computer generated animation of two Humvees having sex. That was my favorite part of the movie.
You know what? You touched on just one part of how weird this movie gets. I don't know that I've seen a more self-indulgent movie ever made. The director spared no expense going for everything he wanted, and he had a budget and he had a hell of a cast. I mean, he had John Lovitz in there, and I love John Lovitz, and he made him unlikable.
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert, Sarah Michelle Gellar, like I said, The Rock. Booger is in it from Revenge of the Nerds, and he was actually pretty good in it. Wallace
Yeah.
Shawn, he was in it.
I
And
like Wally Shawn in it.
yeah, he was good. No, he was
Yeah,
quality
and
Wallace
I
Shawn.
like Sarah Gellar's attempt to be a talk show host and talk about abortion and teenage sexiness and the war. I thought that was funny.
And
And I kind of liked her character, but
it's
everyone else
also
I kind of hated.
Justin Timberlake, we got him in there. I think we got Mandy Moore as well.
Probably.
And Janine Garofalo. I'm just name dropping. And these people have been in a variety of flicks and other creative products. Like I said, for that 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon game, this is clutch. You can connect to anything from this basically. But it blends time travel, conspiracies, uncontrollable future energy sources, a murderous techno state, because this was the context of when this was made, I think, is important because it was under the war on terror under George W. Bush. At the time, I was on his side because I was one of those sleepers. I didn't know what was really going on. Now I know, oh, wait, he was helping build the scaffolding for that soul crushing totalitarian state that has come up in a couple of the other movies that we've already discussed. And so I get that he was the bad guy now, but that very much informs a lot of the sensibilities of this movie. So again, it's timely. And some of the things that seemed funny, like what you talked about with Sarah Michelle Gellar's porn star trying to do mainstream entertainment, that's happened. It's going
Yeah.
on now. And there's people just trying to figure out how to get by with all this dance numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Justin Timberlake sings a killer song in a bowling alley.
Yeah. Well, dumping beers on his head.
Yeah, it is a haul. I'm glad that you did find something enjoyable, even if the
Yeah.
whole thing you hate, that a little part didn't piss you off as much as the rest of
Yeah.
it.
Well, I enjoy actually hating things, so that's okay.
Well, then I gave you a lot to work with.
It's just so tasteless, some of it. One of the things that does that really bugs me is it mixes real military footage or real footage of wildfires or whatever with its fantasy crap. It actually throws George Bush footage in there, but then it also has a fake George W. Bush and his father character in the movie. So it's like it's not creating a reality and it's not a realistic movie. It's, hey, here's some footage of guys shooting each other. Let's throw that in there with this other crap. And it's really offensive to me that they would do that. I imagine it's offensive to you too, because you're a veteran.
Well, I remember enjoying the movie, despite the caveats I gave, and everything that you've said isn't. I don't think you're wrong to think it. Maybe now I would hate it, but I did enjoy it. And there's a peculiar phenomenon with directors that have a breakout hit, and then they get a follow-up where they get to do whatever they want, and then
Yeah.
some of them continue to do great work and build on it, and some of them bust
Yeah.
right out. And Richard Kelly totally did that with this movie because he hasn't made much sense. And what
Yeah.
he has made hasn't been great. He went all out for sure. You can't say he didn't try everything he wanted to do in this movie.
It's
Uh,
just such a, I don't know. You know, he'll mix like what could have been a good idea in another movie, like soldiers being experimented on, and then they have telepathy, and then he just throws that idea away. I kind of like the idea of the conspiracy people who are trying to make a fake shooting to disgrace the police force, but then it turns into a real shooting. I mean, that could have worked in a movie, but the science fiction plot totally doesn't work at all, I think. And then maybe there's some other plots in there that also don't work. I'm not sure.
it is a
There's a
hot
big
mess.
Zeppelin that launches like
Yep.
after 2 hours. And the minute it launches, you know it's going to crash. You know that he didn't know how to end his movie. And so he's going to blow up the Zeppelin. You're just waiting for it because,
Spoiler.
what else is he going to do?
I thought,
He's going
but
to
I
keep
really enjoyed that
escalating.
last scene of the Rock and Sarah Michelle Gellar dancing on that because both of them are getting across to me a sense of they know the world's about to end, so they're just going to be in the here and now and enjoy each other's company. And then, yeah, a terrorist blows the thing up. One of the flaws that you pointed out is what I think adds the surreal element to this movie. All those disparate hodgepodge things being crammed together, it gave me a constant sense of losing my grip on reality because everything people did seemed wrong or off, but they were consistent in their logic, but it was different than my logic and most movies' logic, and how society was operating, how people comported themselves on screen, the mismatch of things that shouldn't go together. It felt like control slipping out of my hands the whole time. So I wasn't quite off the edge into a vat of madness, but I was really trying to hold on to life in a very difficult place. And I think the movie was effective at that.
Yeah, that's true. It was surreal.
Yeah,
You know,
which is the
parts
important
of it,
part for getting on this list.
yeah, both the actors and also there were elements of it that reminded me of better movies. Like I was reminded of Repo Man, which is a much better movie, and I was reminded of Better Off Dead that because of that booger actor you said. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that was a better movie too. And then in the movie, they're watching a movie called Kiss Me Deadly, which is also a better movie. But so it's like
Well, you see, I'm getting ideas for other movies to watch because you were reminded of things you would rather have been watching. Right then.
all
Well,
right. I think I'm done beating it up.
well, I appreciate that. And now we're going to skip forward to almost modern day, 2021. And I think that we're going to bring it together here at the end with Strawberry Mansion, that's
Yeah.
directed by, no shit, this is what IMDb lists his name as, Ken Tucker Audley
Yeah.
and Albert Burney. Now, Ken Tucker is also the male lead in the movie. I think he definitely went for the straight man role for himself. And so he might not be the most entertaining part of the cast, but I thought the cast was really good. So you get 1.5 hours, and the description is in a future where the government records dreams and taxes them. How close are we to that? A dream auditor gets caught up in the dreams of an aging eccentric. At first, I was like, well, that seems timely. And I figure 5 years from now, we'll be in that because you get a plot element in there of advertisements being shot into people's dreams against their will, of tinfoil hats actually making a difference, and a lot of things that are in the zeitgeist. But oh man, I did not see what this one would do to me coming, but I loved it.
Yay.
It hit a lot of sweet spots.
Yeah.
This is a rare movie where I finished it and immediately wanted to watch it again because I know and I'm excited about how this whole movie is going to hit me different in a more enriched way because things that I thought were nonsense, in fact, paid off. And now I
Yeah.
get the sense of anticipation of waiting for the payoff,
Yeah.
and the knowledge that all this is going to be cool. This is going to be worth my time. Because when it started, it was an opening act of another dreadfully depressing existential crisis, slit my wrist kind of movie. That's what I thought, but it doesn't. Everything that follows makes it worthwhile to me. It's not one note. It juggles different moods and tempos very well. The pacing is just slightly on the lingering side, but not much. So my complaint about it being unnecessarily drug out does not apply to this movie. It does what it needs to do in a timely manner. I loved it. What did you think?
Yeah. I'm so happy. I loved it too. It's a dream. It's a romantic dream movie.
Oh,
I guess there's like Beauty and the Beast are two romantic movies. Most of these have been dystopian nightmares, but this is like a dystopian nightmare that turns into a romantic dream.
and
It
I
uh,
totally wasn't
it does a good job of
expecting.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, and the romance angle, it had me falling in love with their relationship, dude. I like how it juxtaposed what you first meet this character as, and then the character who's the same person that you're falling in love with over the course of it. And I felt for both of them equally. And I was very much in the headspace of the main character. It drew me in very well. And oh, it was fatteningly good. So
Mhm.
if you can feel the emotion of love, this is a movie that you'll enjoy. Now there's scary bits along the
Yeah.
way. There's frustration. There's challenge that has to be overcome because without conflict, no story is interesting. But oh, it was uh,
Yay.
so you get dreams very literally, and they're interestingly portrayed. There's the issue of what's reality, what's versus am I having a nervous breakdown and I don't understand the world around me anymore? There's horror, there's the trouble of memory we talked about, peril, life beyond death in some sort of way, sharing our lives with each other, living in each other's memories, and it was wonderful. It's on YouTube for free. I highly recommend people find this and check it out. I'll have a link to it in the description below. So, do you have anything to add to Strawberry Mansion?
He's done another movie called something about the TV's glow, which is not as happy, but it's almost as weird.
Hmm.
So if you're feeling adventurous,
Well, I want to see what else he
but no,
did. And
I think you summed it up really well. I just say it's another low budget movie that the lack of budget just juiced the creativity, you know. They came up with real clever solutions to wanting to do people with wolf heads or whatever,
you're right. And
beads with human heads.
while this was definitely a low budget movie, it did not feel like it at all.
Mhm.
Kind of like I imagine Scotland, PA had a higher budget than this, but neither one of them did I feel like I missed anything. And this one has special effects in it, but I think they were so visually compellingly presented that I was very happy with every part of this thing. And so hopefully, if this sounds interesting to you all watching or listening, then maybe you'll also look into the other works of Kentucker Audley, which I'm going to do. Well, the movie you just mentioned isn't as happy. Is it as satisfying to behold?
No.
So this is the better one?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So
This yeah. This
start
is
with
his
Strawberry
masterpiece.
Mansion. And if you like that, then try some of his other stuff. Since I love this, I'm going to try some of his other stuff. And not everything has to be a 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
but like a 7 out of 10 is still good. You can still have a good time with that. So thank you for recommending that one. And thank you for giving me the list of ideas of movies that you want to check out, which if you feel like challenging the audience, I can put that in the description so they can see this compendium of weird movies they might want to check out in the description.
Sure
Uh,
thing.
because it gave me a lot of good things to check out. We didn't talk about every one of them that I watched at your suggestion on here, but it's worth exploring. Now, you had some honorable mentions you wanted to get in before we close out. What do you got from the 80s, I
Oh,
believe?
thank you. Guy Madden is a weird Canadian director. I would say check out The Saddest Music in the World. It's not that sad. It's actually a funny movie with Isabella Rossellini.
Oh, that's good.
Quentin Duplay or Duplex. is a French director, but his movie that you should check out first is in English, and it's called Rubber, and it's about a tire that makes people's heads explode. It's a horror comedy, but it's quite surreal. And then I got another Japanese director. Let's just say, check out Tetsuo Iron Man, his very strange horror movie, I guess. Very
That's an
short.
important one in the history of horror and Japanese cinema. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm aware of its reputation.
Yeah, I think it's only 20 minutes long. It's crazy fun. Also, of course, David Cronenberg, dystopian body horror king. He did a couple of surreal movies, I would say. Videodrome counts, and it's on a lot of people's lists. And a couple of foreigners. Jan Svankmajer is a Czech animator and filmmaker, and his most accessible movie is called Little Otik. I think it's a fairy tale horror movie, and his other movies are weirder, very weird. And who's the other guy? Oh, Alejandro Jodorowsky with the Spanish first name and the Polish last name. And
This guy.
I tell people to watch Santa Sangre
Okay.
and probably none of his other movies unless
Okay. All
they
right.
love
Because
that one
if
a
you
whole
said
lot.
Holy Mountain, we were going to
No, I
end
never
this on a
suggested
fist
Holy
fight.
Mountain. You saw Holy Mountain.
I,
Let's not go on a sour note.
well, I'm going to say something nice about it
Oh, you
because
are.
what got me into watching Holy Mountain, which I don't recommend to anybody, but were some of the screenshots and the stills that people were putting on Facebook and other social media. It looked very compelling.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it is very much a visual noise movie. So if you are into that, this would be a great movie for you to watch. If you want any plot, if you have a problem with cruelty to animals, and you don't want to watch a man literally smoke his own shit, you see him take the shit and then you see him burn it in a bong and smoke it. And I'm confident he did it. If you have a problem with any of those things, don't watch it. But if you're one of those diehard Lynch fans where you like the visual noise, then you, I don't know that you could go wrong with Holy Mountain. Is that a nice way of talking about that one?
Nice enough.
Well, you were
I
kind
don't
to
think,
Southland Tales as much as you could be, so it's only fair that I return the
yeah,
favor.
yeah. I don't think any animals were harmed in Santa Sangre. Although he
Okay.
may have harmed his own children making it. That's another issue.
Oh no. Well,
What?
aren't all creators of surreal media harmed as children, and that's why they make it? Isn't that how this goes anyway? Aren't we all harmed as children anyway?
Maybe.
So maybe surreal cinema is a way for us to relate to all those emotions, good and bad, and work through them ourselves. So maybe it can inspire y'all like it inspires us, and hopefully we can get some over some of our crippling issues. Well, I appreciate it, Chris. Do you have any last words of wisdom or any other plugs you want to put in with the folks, such as the next channel you're going to be talking about movies on? And if you have a topic, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be on Found in the Ruins, Mike Stewart's spin-off of Save for Half, and I'll be
Okay.
talking about Omega Man and Last Man on Earth and I Am Legend, which are all from the same novel. So a
Yeah.
little bit more lowbrow.
Oh, well, that's interesting stuff.
Yeah. And then I'm going to be talking about vampires at some point on Shane Plays Geek Talk, vampire movies.
Well, now I'm jealous because the vampire genre is one of my favorite. Like the vampire, the role-playing game, vampire movies, I'm all about it. Hell, I wrote a paper in college on the atmosphere presented in Bela Lugosi's Dracula. And so, yeah, that sounds good. And the
Great topic.
zombie one that you've already done with Shane Stacks, again, I enjoyed it. I recommend it to everybody. In that one, y'all get a little more into the scene by scene, funny occurrences in the movies, like the amusing splatters and this and that. But it was well worth my time. I'd check it out. Unfortunately, you
Thank
don't
you.
get to look at us while you do it, but you just get to listen. Well, Shane's not as good as looking as both of us. So he knows what he's working with and he, works with it appropriately. But he puts on a good show.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, you know what? Shakespeare wrote some good plays too.
One or two,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. I like King Lear.
That's all right. That's okay. It's okay for someone to have a miss as long as they occasionally hit. You know, it ain't all got to be perfect, but just give me something good to go on, and I'll keep following you. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for coming along for this journey through a
Well,
catalog of surrealist cinema with us. Hope you enjoyed it. And Chris, we're gonna see you again, and hope you have a
yeah. Thank you.
and never again to not hit the record button.
Yeah, that ended my film career.
Oh, wait, no, go on. I want to hear this.
No, I was animating modeling clay dinosaurs in my at my dad's place with a Super 8 camera, and a cable release, and I forgot to turn the camera on.
So you could have been a star, and that one take was amazing, but the take never happened. You didn't do it.
I don't think I ever really had the patience to be an animator, but I did
Uh,
have an interest for a little while. So I don't know if you can see my shirt.
yes, I can.
It's Hieronymus Bosch.
Oh,
North,
that thing. Didn't you wear that at North Texas
yeah,
last year? Yep.
it's
I think I saw that at the board game that we played.
yeah, it's my new lucky shirt.
That's a lucky shirt. My God.
Well, it's my favorite painting, so somebody bought it for me.
That is a unique subject matter for a Hawaiian shirt, I'll tell you that.